Hello and welcome to Lunch and Learn Wednesdays presented by Venture Portland. I'm your host, Jacob Falkenberg, the Communications Director at Venture Portland. And today we're going to be talking about business district PR campaigns and ways and strategies for your district to earn positive media coverage because we've got some holidays coming up, and I'm sure your districts have some events and things you want to highlight. And there's no better way to do so than getting the attention of the press and other organizations that can kind of help to spread the word and make people more aware of what's going on in your district. Okay. So first off, let's talk about what is a marketing slash media slash PR campaign. Um, the primary purpose of all these things really is to help to uh, share the brand of your district, help to people to understand what your district identity is all about, and just gain more attention for the things that you're doing in your district. They help your district focus resources around a single theme or idea during a specific time frame. These are typically proactive, right? So you want to start these well in advance of the actual thing you want to promote. And you can measure your success by the amount of content you create in the campaign, new followers on social media or your newsletter, or increases in traffic to your website, if that's one of the goals, or earned media. So the amount of news stories that are written about the specific thing that you're trying to promote. It can also focus on specific district assets. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an event that you're promoting. Maybe you just got a cool new mural in your district. Maybe there's a specific issue in your district happening that you want to highlight, whether it's construction or maybe crime, things like that. But really, it's always best to focus on the positive. So you want to increase awareness of your district and increase people coming into the district. Okay, so let's talk about the difference between earned, owned, and paid media because there's some really big differences between those things. Um, First, owned media are your district assets. So this is content that your district creates itself and publishes on your channels, owned and operated by your district. So this could be your district's website, your newsletters, Instagram page, that sort of thing. You control what happens in those spheres and what content gets posted or doesn't get posted, and what messaging you're sharing in those specific outlets. Paid media is any marketing effort that your district pays for, obviously. So this could be print, radio, TV ads, social media sponsored posts, pay-per-click campaigns on Google or other websites, or advertorial inserts that you're paying to have inserted into a newspaper or other publication. Earned or free media is the content and conversation around your district, brand, or product that's created by someone else and published somewhere other than your own channels that you're not paying for. So this would be a news story on a specific thing that's happening in your district. It's going to amplify your effort, and as news sites and social media users pick up on your campaigns and spread the word. So it could be an influencer making a post about your district or an event that you're doing. It could include press coverage, social media mentions and shares, product or company reviews, and blog posts. So this is when someone picks up on something you're doing without you asking and without you paying, and puts an organic post out into the world about it. So, for example, the Mississippi Street Fair, one of Portland's biggest street fairs and summer events, got some great news coverage this year. This one's from Fox 12, but I think they had a couple other outlets out there wanting to highlight all the great things that they were doing during that event. Okay, also, let's talk a little bit about how to get that media coverage, because there's a couple of steps you want to take in order to do so, and you want to have all the pieces in place before moving forward well in advance of if you're trying to promote an event or a specific thing happening in your district. So the first thing for earning media that you need to have is a media list. And this is essentially just could be a spreadsheet or something on a program that you use for email that has a list of different reporters' names, beats, and specialties, what the outlet is, what the reporter's contact information is, and what the requirements are for submitting stories to that specific outlet. So you can find this information on pretty much any media outlet's website. So Oregonian, Willamette Week, the Tribune, anything out there will have a list of reporters and their contact information. So you want to keep this in a place where you can easily repurpose it for emails that you're sending out, specifically press releases and things like that. And you want to update it regularly because there's always a lot of turnover happening in these outlets. So making sure that you have the most up-to-date contact information is super important. That way you're not getting a ton of bounce backs and you're reaching as many people as possible when you want to. You also want to follow the outlet and their accounts on social media. So each media outlet will have an Instagram account, a Facebook account, newsletters. So you want to follow them using your district's accounts, and as well as the reporters. And you really want to focus on some of the more hyper-local reporters and hyper-local outlets. So getting something in the Oregonian is great, or getting something on KGW is great. But there's a lot of smaller papers and reporters that are really focused on specific areas of the city. And those are the ones you're going to have the most luck getting their attention, because they're really focused on a very narrow set of area that they want to report on. So it could be Montevilla News or East PDX News. There's a whole slew of them. So making sure you're starting to develop relationships with the hyper-local reporters as well as the citywide reporters. Another important thing to think about on your media list is you want to separate reporters and outlets from your bulk contacts, right? So you've got newsletters and stuff that you send out to people who signed up to receive those, or businesses in your district, or people that live in your district. But you don't want to send out everything and include reporters on those, right? Like you really only want to send those reporters specific things, like press releases or media alerts or things like that. So having a separate category for reporters and media outlets in your MailChimp or whatever you're using to send emails is really going to help to segment when you're doing outreach to these areas. If you're sending reporters too much, too often, they're going to start to ignore it, right? If they're only receiving something from you once a month or once every 2 or 3 months, it's going to get more attention because it's going to feel like it's more important. Okay, so once you've got your media list, there are 2 different types of emails that you can send to reporters and media outlets. The first is a media advisory. And really the goal of the media advisory is to save the date that you're sending to very specific reporters that you want to attend an event or something that you're doing to write a story about it. So this should happen 1 to 2 weeks ahead of the event. And it should really be quick and dirty, right? A bulleted list of who, what, why, when, and where. So, just single sentences, just to make it as quick and easy to read as possible. But you also want to make sure to include a primary contact and boilerplate language. So boilerplate language is something that you include in every email that just kind of gives an overview of your business association or your district, what your identity is and the things you're known for, and that sort of. So that won't change, but really focusing on the important who, what, why, when, and where for these to targeted reporters. And then you're going to follow this with a news release as you get closer to the date of the event. So a news release is a little more in-depth This is going to be sent immediately before or after a newsworthy occurrence and have broader distribution, right? Because this is something that's going to be in a more narrative format that a reporter can easily just take and repurpose as a news story, right? It's not just the information about how to get to the event and when the event's happening, but it's a narrative that could be just put in a newspaper, put on a website with as little research or additional additions as possible. So this narrative format is going to be 2 pages max, so keep it, again, short and sweet. And you can also include some photos and art to go along with it to really help to create a complete package of what your announcement is all about. So let's take a little bit more in-depth look at a news release and what are the different components of a news release, things to keep to think about when you're writing a news release. So at the very top of the news release, you're going to have the primary contact information. So your primary contact is someone at your business association who is both authorized by the board to speak to the press, but they should also be qualified to speak to the press. So they should know about the district, they should know about the event, they should be prepared to answer questions about it. But they should also have availability, right? A lot of the times when the press reaches out to you, there's a very short turnaround. It could be just a couple hours that you have to answer questions about something that they want to write about. So it needs to be somebody that also has availability to do so or can drop what they're doing to answer questions from the press. And then right below your contact information is your headline. So you all know what a headline is. You see it in the news. This is going to be something that summarizes what you're doing, but short and sweet. If you feel like you need a little bit more detail, you can have a subheading below the headline. But really, shorter is better, trying to summarize what you're doing. And then as you get into the body of the news release, you're going to start with a dateline. So you see these at the beginning of news stories. It essentially just says when and where the specific thing is happening, right off the bat, beginning of the first sentence. And then you get into your lead sentence, which tells you what's the news, trying to summarize the whole story in one sentence. So anything beyond the date and location, why is it important? Why should people care? Why is it exciting? And then think of the rest of the news release as kind of an inverted pyramid. So trying to focus all the important information at the very top, because sometimes they don't make it all the way through. And then as you get towards the bottom, things that aren't as crucial can be included as well. But you also want to think about adding a quote to your news release. So this could be someone else from the association president or your executive director, or someone directly involved with the project that can add interest or introduce a key player, or just break up the text a little bit so it's not just you telling about something, but someone else can also provide some credibility to what you're doing. And then finally, at the very end, is that boilerplate language that I mentioned. And that is going to be the standard language that's included in every release that you're doing, just a blurb about your district and what you typically do and what you're known for. Okay, so you've sent your media alert, you've sent your news release. What happens when the media calls or emails? There are certain steps you want to take before you do anything, right? So when the media calls, stay calm, stay cool and collected. You may feel tempted to just start talking as quickly as possible, right? Because this is a great opportunity and you don't want to miss it. But we highly recommend getting the following information first to give you time to think about your messaging and then call the reporter back in a timely manner. So when someone reaches out to you, you want to make sure to get the reporter's name and their outlet, what story they're writing about, what's the deadline for their story, and what's their contact information. And that'll give you some time to kind of step back, take a breath, maybe consult with some other members of the board about how you want this messaging to go, and really get the the most important details lined up for your conversation with them, and give you a chance to maybe even rehearse your conversation with them to make sure it goes as smoothly as possible. So you want to also make sure you're authorized to speak to the press. As I said, typically at a business association, the president and the executive director, if you have one, are the only two people authorized to speak on behalf of the business or business district. So you want to ensure that those who aren't authorized to speak don't. So making sure at board meetings that board members know that if they're not authorized, they should pass along the contact information of the person who is authorized. This avoids having any mixed messaging or inconsistent messaging when people who aren't authorized to speak try and speak to the press. It just gets messy. So make sure you know who's authorized to speak to them and what their contact information is so you can share it with the media. And then you also want to respect the media's deadlines. So always ask a reporter about their deadline and make sure you respond appropriately. Like I said, it can be anywhere from a couple hours to a couple of days. The news moves very quickly. So if you're not getting back to them in a timely manner, they're going to move on to something else. You also want to have a plan. Know your audience. Create a message box. Identify 3 to 4 key points and make them. And make them over and over again, because sometimes it takes a long time for people to absorb messaging, and they need to hear it over and over again. Say what you mean and mean what you say. If you don't know the answer, say so. It's okay. You don't have to have the answer to all their questions, but don't just make something up to satisfy their inquiry. Say you don't know, and then offer to get back to the reporter so you can consult the rest of the board if you're unsure of an answer to a question. Practice makes perfect, right? So as you're kind of coming up with a plan your messages in advance and practice. You want to sound natural. You don't want it to sound rehearsed while you're making your point. So practice with a buddy in front of the mirror, however it is that makes you comfortable. You also, like I said, need to repeat those key points. It takes an average person 7 to 10 times to recognize a message that you're trying to get across. So it may feel like a broken record, but repeating your message is the best way to ensure it ends up in the story, right? You want to control the narrative. So make sure you're hammering those key points home. So just a couple of tips about public speaking. If you don't have a ton of experience with this, that's okay. But some things to think about is you want to own your ideas and comments. Don't minimize them with I'm just, or I might be wrong, or actually, or I believe. Really be confident in your statements. And don't tag questions either, right? Like, it's cold in here, isn't it? Or that sounds right, doesn't it? That just makes you sound like you don't actually know what you're talking about. You're not confident, that you might be maybe hiding something, or it might not be something worth being put into an article. Also, punctuate and pause, right? So the reporter is going to give you all the time in the world. And a lot of the times when there's dead air or silence, people will start to ramble. And they'll start to say things that maybe they didn't mean to say. So making sure that after you've made your key points, pause, and then give the reporter a chance to respond. It might take a few seconds, it might feel uncomfortable, but it'll keep you from saying something you didn't mean to say. You also don't want to make statements that sound like questions or replace statements with questions. Okay. So this is not a social media training, but social media can be a really great way to get media attention, especially Instagram. So we're going to talk a little bit about some best practices for generating Instagram content that is going to be effective in getting your message across. So most of your associations have an Instagram account. You might not use it that often. There might be a certain person responsible who's more savvy with social media. But right now, Reels are one of the most effective content formats on Instagram. So Reels are short form videos that help you reach new audiences and really get people engaged. So Reels should be catchy, offer quick value, and might feature trending music. So when you're putting together a reel, quick cuts, less than a minute, music, animations, things of that nature. But also carousel posts are super effective. So carousel posts are posts that have more than one photo that you can kind of swipe through. And this is useful for sharing complex topics, tutorials, step-by-step guides. They keep users engaged for longer because it takes them time to kind of scan through each photo, and also helps you show up in the Explore tab. So the Explore tab in Instagram is, if you click the search button, Instagram is going to give you a ton of videos, maybe from accounts that you don't follow, based on what your interests are and what your activity has been like, the algorithm. And carousel posts, more often than not, show up in that Explore tab, which can help you generate new followers and show your content to people that may not have seen it before. You also want to think about producing high quality visuals, right? So high resolution, well lit photos and videos, considering purchasing a light that you can use if you're creating a lot of content in low light situations. It's super helpful to make sure that you've got that high res visual, especially in a specific niche. So, right, if you're posting, it's about a specific thing. Also, interactive stories are great. So if you're posting a story, you can add a poll or a Q&A and a quiz. It's a way to engage your existing audience and generate content ideas. People can add what they want to hear or what they think should be talked about, and it gives you more information on, what does your audience want? So a couple of content strategies when you're thinking about Instagram posts. It should always be value driven, right? You want to create posts that are educational or inspiring or entertaining. It's got to be worth people's time to really cut through all the other content that's out there and get people's attention. It should be a compelling storytelling post. So something emotive with genuine stories that can create strong connections with your followers. Also, behind the scenes content is really popular. If you can show what's going on in a business, how products are made or what happens, how the staff kind of gets ready for their day, or kind of creates the experiences that you all offer. Raw, unpolished footage of this really builds authenticity and connection to your followers. You also want to focus on a specific niche, right? So high quality visuals and content within a specific niche. So if you're a restaurant, obviously you're going to be focusing on food. If you're a lifestyle brand, you're going to be focusing on that. If you're a business association, obviously you're focusing on the businesses in the district or the things happening in the district. So keeping it consistent is also going to drive engagement. Also, calls to action. So encouraging engagement by including clear calls to action in captions. What should people do? What's super important for people to do? Sometimes you need to call that out in the actual description or in the comments. So thinking about promoting a specific event on Instagram is different than what you might be posting regularly on Instagram, maybe highlighting a specific business or something that's going on in your district. An event requires a little bit more pre-planning, right? So you want to begin design of event assets at least 2 months prior, right? So that's you're going to have your poster, but you also need to create specific content for Instagram, right? It's got to be a specific size. It might not have all the information that's on the poster. It might focus on maybe a specific aspect of the event, and maybe there's a separate post focusing on maybe the sponsors of the event, or there's a post maybe that highlights the event last year so people can help to understand what to expect. So start compiling these assets, designing these assets at least 2 months prior, so you can begin posting at least 1 month prior. So you want to get it on people's radar about a month out so they can get it on their calendars. People's calendars fill up quickly, especially around the holiday season. So beginning that post 1 month prior will help you to kind of build a following for what's going on. And then once you've posted it, you want to pin it. So pinning it allows you to kind of keep it at the top of your Instagram page. So you don't have to keep reposting, and it doesn't get buried by new content. People are going to see it when they click on your account. And then you can repost your original post as a story. And you can do that regularly. And those are only up for 24 hours. So you're going to want to do that over and over again. But it keeps your actual account looking clean, so you're not reposting the same thing over and over again there, but you're still able to kind of get the attention of people who are looking at stories. So you also want to tag participating businesses and sponsors and partners who are involved with the event, right? By tagging them, they're going to be aware of the post. They can reshare it. It can show up on their timeline, and that's going to help to kind of get the word out there and help you build more following. Also, put a link in your bio with more information. So the post is great, but it might not say everything that you need to say, and you don't want it getting too cluttered. So link in bio going to your website that has maybe links for how a vendor can sign up, or maybe there's a run of show where there's a whole list of different things happening throughout the day. Put that on the website rather than the Instagram post. As people begin to respond and react to and comment on your post, you want to respond and react to those things, right? So if there's going to be questions coming up, make sure to monitor that ongoing so you can answer people's questions. And then as you engage with people in the comments, that's going to boost this post and kind of create more of a following on Instagram as people are engaging with you. Also, you want to send the post via DM to targeted media, right? If there's specific reporters that you want to come to your event and they have an Instagram account, the best way to get them to see it is to send it to them via DM in Instagram and say, hey, you know, we think you might be interested in this. We'd like to invite you to attend. So it's really like a social media alert rather than doing it via email. Doing it on Instagram can also be effective. And also, I can't stress this enough, don't forget to recognize and thank your sponsors. They should be on all the materials related to the event. If you want them to sponsor you next year, you've got to recognize them, right? They really appreciate it. It's why they sponsor these events. They want to be seen as a part of the community and a reason that these events are happening. So you got to remember to put their logo on things, give them shout outs as you're kind of doing communications. Okay, so that's enough about Instagram. Let's talk a little bit about editorial calendars. So in addition to your media list, we recommend also keeping an editorial calendar. And that's going to be a calendar that has all the different things that you can write about that happen throughout the year. And a great way to do this is just to use a shared Google Calendar and put these things in as they happen so you can be reminded of them well in advance. So I don't know if you all are subscribed to Venture Portland's email list, but every week we highlight maybe a special day that's happening that week or in the near future. So it could be, you know, International Pizza Day or Small Business Week or something like that, and highlight businesses that are related to that. So putting in business related days are super helpful. So if it is Pizza Week or Pizza Month, you can have that on your calendar and you know, okay, maybe we'll do a post about the different pizzerias in our district, or maybe we'll send out something in our newsletter about Pizza Week and encourage people to support the businesses in our district that relate to that. You also want to have your district events and milestones in there. So, when is your summer event? When is your fall event? Having that in there just so everybody is aware and can plan accordingly to get those media alerts out, those news releases out in advance, right? Citywide events can also be included in this. So this is everything from, the Winter Light Festival to Portland Cinco de Mayo Festival, things like that. National holidays as well. Indigenous Peoples Day, in addition to all your normal holidays that you would be highlighting based on the time of the year. And then those National Day week months, there's like maybe 20 or 30 of them every day. So typically, if you're looking for something to post about or to write about, there will be something going on. You just got to go out and find it and make sure it's in your editorial calendar so you have it for later. And I'll send out a sample editorial calendar kind of based on what we use as an organization to kind of get you started, because there's a lot of different things at any given moment that you can highlight. Speaking of which, there's a ton of stuff coming up. Right now, we're in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month. That was September 15th through October 15th. Coming up in October, we've got National Book Month and National Pizza Month, as I said. Also, Indigenous Peoples Day, Halloween, Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Giving Tuesday. These are all things that you want to have in your editorial calendar so you can start planning content and outreach based on what's coming up and how you can kind of get your district plugged into it, right? The businesses in your district, who relates to what's going on, and how can we kind of lift them up? And just thinking about, what is newsworthy, right? So again, like I said, you're not going to be sending the press everything that you're talking about. You really want to focus on the things that would be considered newsworthy. So it's got to be new. It's got to be current. It's got to be relevant. It's got to have an impact on your district or the city as a whole, or even the state. The higher impact that you can kind of quantify, the more relevant it's going to be seen by the press. So trying to put numbers to the things that you're talking about is really going to help to show the scale, right? So like if you're putting on an event this year and last year you had 1,000 people show up, put that in the news release, right? That helps the press understand how big it's going to be, or what it has the potential to be. Location. That's always important too. It's got to be relevant to your district, right? It's got to be, maybe it's happening in a venue that's a new venue or a recently renovated venue. Giving as much information about the venue as possible is super helpful. Also, creating an air of prominence, right? Like this is an event that's kind of for those in the know, right? A lot of writers and reporters want to be reporting on something that hasn't been reported on before, that might be kind of flying under the radar because they're looking for original content. So kind of creating that air of VIP is going to help to get their attention as well. But human interest stories, again, always have the most interest from the press. Something that's going to evoke emotion, something that is interesting, offbeat, quirky. Of course, Portland is the weird city, right? So the media is always trying to reinforce that. So if you can kind of play off on our citywide reputation and what our identity is as a city, that's going to also be more successful as well. But feel-good stories are also important, with so much negative things being focused on in the press. A lot of the times, reporters are looking for something positive to share. People don't want to all hear doom and gloom all the time. So if you can kind of contribute something that shows some of the great things happening around our city, that's going to be successful too. Okay. So you also want to think about tracking your coverage, right? So how do you know when a story is written about you? Sometimes they don't tell you, right? Sometimes they don't reach out to you. They're just going to write about it based on what they find in their own investigation. So creating Google alerts is a really great way to be alerted when a story is written about your district or your business. And it's super easy to do. And you want to have multiple alerts going on. So that could be the name of your business district, names of key players in your business association. So the president, people on the board, that sort of thing. Key products, if you're a retailer, or events. So if there's a specific event that you do, having that in there. But basically you can add all these different keywords, and Google will tell you when there's a news article that mentions one of those keywords. Just go to google.com/alerts, log into your Google account, and enter those keywords and click create alert. And they will send you an email every day with a summary of when those things were specifically mentioned. I have one, as you can see there on the right, for every district in the city. So I can kind of keep track of when districts are being mentioned. And then if it's something positive, I can share that on our socials, or kind of keep up on the news that's happening in different districts for our newsletters and things like that. Okay, so with the good comes the bad. Sometimes bad publicity will strike, and it might be out of your control, but you want to be prepared when it does. When the press reaches out to you about something negative, here are a couple of tips to handle it in the best way you can. So first, you want to stay calm and gather facts. Again, you don't have to respond immediately. Get the information from the reporter, take it back. Don't do any quick emotional reactions, but thoroughly research the situation to understand the facts and the extent of the problem. So you might have to get the information from the reporter and talk to the board about what's the strategy going to be and how are we going to respond to this story, so we can kind of tell our side of the story, right? So we can kind of clear the air, clear any misconceptions that might have popped up. Again, respond quickly but thoughtfully. They're going to have a deadline. Make sure you're respectful of that deadline, but make sure that your response is well prepared and based on facts and not just emotion, because it may come as a surprise to you. So you don't want to be talking in the heat of the moment. Be transparent and accountable. So if there were mistakes that were made, acknowledge them. Acknowledge them openly, take responsibility, because honesty builds trust. By just ignoring something or denying something, it can worsen the situation. Sometimes silence is an indication of guilt. So you want to communicate clearly, craft a consistent, truthful message, not only for the reporter, but across all the platforms to correct misunderstandings and inform your stakeholders. So if something does come up, make sure that you are having this consistent message in your social media posts, in your newsletter, on your website, wherever it might need to be to help avoid rumors and really set the record straight. Okay, so I was just talking for a really long time, so I'm going to stop sharing for a minute and open up the floor to questions about anything that may have been mentioned during the presentation, or something that you're thinking about promoting in the upcoming holiday season, and maybe some strategies for that. So does anybody have any questions they wanted to ask about anything that we discussed? Feel free to chime in, use the hand raise feature, drop it in the chat. Just looking at the chat now and not seeing anything in there. I know you're probably all still processing the, the information, so that is fair. We do have a couple of minutes left, so definitely feel free to ask if you have anything that was unclear, or you're dealing with something right now that you need a second opinion on. I'm also going to send some resources. So like I said, we've got some sample media releases, or sample news releases, a sample editorial calendar, some best practices for interviews and working with the media. So I will include those in my follow-up email, and you can feel free to share those with the businesses in your district, or whoever might be the person who could potentially be talking to the media in the near future. Kim Silva says, do you have recommendations to make impactful letters to the editor? So that's something we didn't really talk about, is, if there's something that, is happening in your district that's maybe super important, but there maybe not a story written about it, or there was a story written about it that wasn't entirely accurate. A letter to the editor can be a really effective way of, getting your voice out there without having to go through the trouble of getting a story written about it. And I think a lot of the same tips for working with reporters and writing a news release can be applied to a letter to the editor, right? It's got to be short and sweet. They're not going to print anything that's multiple pages long. You're going to want to make your same point multiple times during the letter. You want to have a unified voice, right? So working with the board or your executive committee to craft a response that really takes into consideration everybody's opinions at the association, but also any other businesses that might have been affected by whatever the issue is, right? Making sure they're engaged, you get their opinions, having them look it over to make sure it's completely accurate first before it gets sent in. But not being super reactionary, right? Like, it's got to be professional and polite. It can't be accusatory or inflammatory. Really, you want to be the bigger person when you're thinking about writing a letter to the editor, and not sounding like you're super emotional or angry or sad about something, but really hammering those 3 to 4 points in just a couple of paragraphs is going to have the biggest chance of actually getting printed in a publication.
May I ask a follow-up question about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So from the media's perspective, how do they want to use letters to the editor? And thanks so much for these answers.
Yeah, so a letter to the editor is typically in response to an article that they had written. And it could go 2 ways. It could be in support of the article, or it could be more corrective, right? Or have a differing opinion. But it has to be relevant to something that they've already written about. So just writing a letter about an issue happening in your district, unless it was mentioned in a previous article that outlet has written, probably won't get printed. It's got to be something that's topical and relevant to what's been in the conversation recently. Okay, another question here from Jessica. If you want to put out a story or PSA about your neighborhood that involves buildings that you do not own, do you need permission from owners to show their properties, not addresses, in social media posts? What level of permission do you need for a neighborhood or district story? That's a great question. I actually don't want to give you definitive advice on that, because that could be a legal issue about mentioning specific people's names. I do know that exterior building shots are okay, because anything that can be taken from the street can be legally shared via social media. Interior shots are a different story. You definitely want to get the building owners or the property owners or the tenants' permission before posting anything from an interior shot of a building. But if you're just taking a picture of like graffiti or something on the outside of a building, that's entirely okay, as long as it can be seen from the street. Any other questions? Okay, well, you all will get about 10 minutes back in your days. I thank you so much for being here. And with the holiday season coming up, certainly feel free to share any of the events that you've got going on with us so we can kind of share them on our channels. So make sure you're following us at Venture Portland on Instagram or send me an email, jacob@ventureportland, and I will make sure it gets up on our website, in our newsletters, on our Instagram page, all the different outlets as well. And we can help you amplify your message in addition to hopefully all the great press you're going to get this holiday season. So thank you all for being here. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. And we'll see you soon. Have a great rest of your day.